Brothers and sisters, open your eyes and listen with care. Watch this video until the very end, for it is your right to know the truth. Today I will speak of something that many in this so-called free world wish to conceal. They lecture us on justice, on transparency, on accountability, on democracy. They point their fingers at Africa, calling us corrupt, calling us backward, saying we must learn from their institutions. But when you peel the mask from their system, when you look behind the curtains of the United States Supreme Court, you will find a rot so deep it stinks to the heavens. I speak of Judge Clarence Thomas and the billionaire who feeds him, Harlan. Yes, I will speak without fear, for the truth must be told. These are the men who sit in the highest places, who make the decisions that shape nations, who pretend to be above politics, above money, above temptation. But what are they in reality? Servants of wealth, agents of the elite, protectors of a system built not for the people, but for billionaires and their friends. Let us begin with the scandal of expensive gifts. Imagine, my brothers and sisters, a judge who is meant to embody integrity, a man entrusted with the sacred duty of protecting the Constitution, a man whose very position demands he remain above temptation. And yet, what do we find? We find Clarence Thomas, a man who sits on the highest bench of justice in America, drowning in gifts that no ordinary citizen could ever dream of. This is not rumor. This is not gossip. This is documented fact, undeniable and shameful. Private jet flights, not once, not twice, not even a handful of times, but again and again, as if the skies themselves are his to command simply because he wears a black robe. Each trip costs tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands, yet he pays nothing. Who covers the cost? His so-called friend, the billionaire Harlan. But ask yourselves, when a man becomes so accustomed to stepping into luxury jets at the snap of a finger, does he still recall the struggles of ordinary citizens who cannot afford a bus ticket? When his eyes are blinded by the shine of private cabins and golden cutlery, does he still see the single mother struggling to pay for food? Tell me, my friends, can such a man call himself impartial? And then, the yachts. The yachts. Massive floating palaces cutting across oceans with servants, chefs, and luxury beyond imagination. Clarence Thomas did not merely read about these yachts in magazines. He lived on them, feasted on them, relaxed on them. He sailed on seas where his only duty was to enjoy, all while the billionaire who owns them smiled, knowing he had his judge exactly where he wanted him, comfortable, indebted, grateful. These yachts, these floating kingdoms, cost more to fuel in 1 week than an entire African village might spend in a year. And yet this man, this so-called guardian of justice, indulged in them like a child in a candy store, never once thinking the people deserved to know who was feeding him. And if you believe it stops there, you are mistaken. Exotic retreats, secret holidays, expensive resorts tucked away in corners of the world most of us will never set foot in. Places where the elite gather, far from the eyes of ordinary citizens. That is where Clarence Thomas spent his time, dining with billionaires, bathing in luxury, sipping wine that costs more than a farmer's annual income. All of it paid for, all of it hidden, all of it conveniently erased from the declarations he was legally required to file. Do you see, my brothers and sisters, how corruption wears a suit, how bribery hides itself behind the word hospitality? And yet they tell us, this man represents justice. They place him on a pedestal. They bow before his robe. They call him honorable. They say to us, here is your example of integrity. Here is the guardian of law. Here is the man who will protect the weak. But what kind of justice is this where the judge is a permanent guest at the banquet of billionaires? What kind of integrity is this when his loyalty is secured not by truth, but by luxury? Do you not see the insult, my brothers and sisters? They expect us to believe that a man who dines at the table of billionaires can still claim to represent the poor. This is not only hypocrisy, it is mockery. It is spitting in the face of every ordinary citizen. If his vacations are paid for by men who own skyscrapers and empires, how can he ever defend the tenant whose roof is falling apart? How can he rule fairly when his benefactors are the same men who exploit workers, who evict families, who control the very corporations that appear before his court? Tell me, if a billionaire pays for his yacht, will he ever rule against that billionaire's company? If a billionaire buys his plane ticket, will he ever hear the cries of the worker who earns barely enough for a bicycle? If his entire life has been made soft and golden by the elite, does he even know what the poor endure? No, he does not see them. He does not hear them. And he certainly does not fight for them. This man lives in a world of private jets and champagne glasses, of whispered deals and hidden gifts. But justice is not supposed to live in palaces. Justice is supposed to walk in the markets, sit in the homes of the people, listen to the cries of the oppressed. How can Clarence Thomas claim to deliver justice when he does not even share the same world as those he judges? His reality is not our reality. His struggles are not our struggles. He is like a man floating above the ground, untouched, untouchable, isolated in the clouds of billionaire luxury, while the masses suffer below. And such a man dares to tell us what is fair. Such a man dares to decide the fate of millions. Look carefully. When justice is bought with champagne, it becomes poison. When integrity is tied to yachts and luxury resorts, it ceases to exist. When a judge lives at the mercy of billionaires, he is no longer a judge. He is a servant, a loyal dog dressed in a robe, barking only when his master commands. That is the tragedy of Clarence Thomas. That is the shame of the so-called Supreme Court. They say justice is blind, but tell me, is justice truly blind when it sees only the hand that pours the wine? Is justice blind when it looks away from the suffering of the poor, but gazes with gratitude at the gifts of the rich? No, my friends, this is not blindness. This is deliberate sight. Sight directed only toward wealth and power. And such justice is not justice at all. It is injustice disguised. So I say again, justice bought with champagne is no justice at all. It is a betrayal, a robbery, a crime against the people. And every ruling he makes, every decision he delivers, carries the fingerprints of his benefactors. It is tainted. It is corrupted. It is unworthy of respect. And let me go further. These gifts were not one-time favors. They were systematic. Year after year, decade after decade, Clarence Thomas enjoyed this lifestyle. This was not a slip. This was not an accident. This was a pattern, a relationship built on luxury and silence. And in return, what did he give? He gave loyalty not to the people, not to the law, but to the billionaire class. He became their man on the inside, their voice on the bench, their shield against accountability. So let us tear away the mask. This is not friendship. This is not generosity. This is the purchase of influence carefully disguised as kindness. This is bribery with fine wine instead of dirty cash. This is corruption wearing perfume. Corruption sailing on yachts. Corruption flying first class. And I say to you, my brothers and sisters, no amount of perfume can hide the stench of injustice. But it does not end there. Harlan, the billionaire who acts as Thomas's personal benefactor, did not just give him gifts. He went further. He bought real estate directly from Clarence Thomas. He purchased the house where Thomas's mother still lives. And what did the great defender of law do? He did not disclose it. He hid it. He covered it up. Imagine the audacity. A Supreme Court judge sitting on the highest bench involved in secret property deals with a billionaire friend. If this were in Africa, they would send delegations. They would impose sanctions. They would scream on every Western news channel that our courts are corrupt. But because it is America, they whisper, they downplay, they look the other way. And still more revelations. Do you know that Harlan even paid for the tuition of Thomas's grandnephew? Yes, school fees, quietly covered by the billionaire's wallet. Brothers and sisters, who in this world pays tuition for another man's child if not to buy loyalty, if not to secure influence? They call it friendship. I call it bribery disguised as generosity. They call it hospitality. I call it corruption in a tuxedo. And when questioned, Clarence Thomas has the arrogance to defend himself by saying, "Oh, Harlan is just a dear friend. A friend who just happens to spend millions to keep you comfortable. A friend who just happens to buy you luxury vacations. A friend who just happens to buy your mother's house. A friend who just happens to pay for your family's education." Tell me, is that friendship or is that ownership? Because when a man feeds you, houses you, and educates your children, you no longer belong to yourself. You belong to him. Clarence Thomas belongs not to the people, not to the Constitution, not to justice, but to Harlan and the billionaire class he represents. And what does this mean for the ordinary citizen? It means that when the court makes decisions on workers' rights, on voting rights, on corporate power, Clarence Thomas is not thinking of the people. He is thinking of his benefactors. He is thinking of the men who fly him across the seas on their private jets. He is thinking of the billionaires who have made his life one long vacation. And yet, this is the man who sits in judgment of others, who dares to lecture the world about ethics, who rules on cases that affect millions. What hypocrisy! What mockery of justice, huh? They want us to believe that this is normal. They want us to swallow the lie that it is just friendship. But ask yourselves, why does this friendship always flow one way? Why is it always the billionaire giving and the judge receiving? Why are these gifts never disclosed until journalists dig them out from the shadows? Why is it that the ordinary citizen cannot buy such access? Is not for the people to enjoy such luxury? Is not for the common person to bend the ears of judges in the same manner? The reason is that the system was not constructed for the people. It was constructed for the elite, for the few, for the wealthy, who behave as if judges are their private servants. Brothers and sisters, corruption does not always arrive in the shape of stolen briefcases filled with cash. Sometimes it arrives as first-class flights, as yacht trips to exotic islands, as luxury homes gifted under the table. Many are the clothes that corruption wears. In Africa, they label us thieves for far less. On their television screens, they humiliate us. Upon our leaders, they apply pressure. But in America, when their own judges are caught in the act, they shield them with silence. Do not allow yourselves to be deceived. This is no isolated scandal. This is the essential nature of their so-called justice system. It is not justice. It is protection for the elite. Clarence Thomas is merely the public face of a system that rewards loyalty to billionaires, not a loyalty to truth. When the court shields corporations, when labor unions are weakened by it, when the voting rights of the poor and minorities are undermined by it, who is it that benefits? Not the people, not the weak, not the oppressed. It is always the same group, the billionaires and the agents who serve them. They expect us to bow before these men as if they are untouchable. But I say that no man who eats from the hands of the elite can ever claim to be a servant of justice. Clarence Thomas has been paid for and bought. And if America possessed the courage to look at itself in the mirror, it would confess that its Supreme Court is compromised. But courage is a thing they lack when it is time to judge themselves. Courage is only found when it is time to judge others, when it is time to lecture Africa, when it is time to instruct us on how to run our nations. So I say to America, before you tell us how to arrange our house, clean your own. You parade around the world as if you are the guardians of justice, the masters of morality, the shining light of democracy. But how bright can your light possibly be when it is fueled by corruption? How can you preach to us about governance when your own highest court is drowning in scandal? You have judges who live as the permanent guests of billionaires. Yet you point your finger at Africa and call us the corrupt ones. You have justice itself bought and sold like merchandise in a marketplace. Yet you pretend to be the guardians of democracy. This is not guardianship. This is robbery dressed in judicial robes. You have men like Clarence Thomas, men who should embody integrity reduced to the pathetic status of loyal servants to a single rich man. Men who wear the title of justice yet behave like butlers waiting for the next private flight, the next yacht trip, the next handout from their master. And still you have the audacity to come to our lands to lecture us, to tell us that we must learn from you. Learn what? Learn how to sell our souls to billionaires. Learn how to make justice an auction where the highest bidder wins. And you dare to teach us about law. You dare to stand on podiums, to send your delegations to wag your fingers and tell us that our systems are corrupt, our courts are weak, our nations are unstable. Who gave you that right when your own courts are compromised? When your own judges kneel before the throne of money? How can the corrupt instruct the clean? How can the compromised dictate to the uncompromised? It is hypocrisy of the highest order, and I refuse to remain silent in the face of such arrogance. You call yourselves the defenders of democracy, yet your democracy is for sale. You call yourselves the champions of justice, yet your justice is leased out to billionaires. You call yourselves the teachers of governance, yet your governance is a circus where the clowns wear robes and the ringmasters are men of unimaginable wealth. And you believe the world does not see this. You believe the people do not notice. No, America, the mask has fallen. The world is watching. Africa is watching. And we are not blind. So before you send your so-called experts to lecture us, before you write your reports about corruption in Africa, before you impose sanctions on our leaders, look to your own court. Look to Clarence Thomas. Look to the billionaires who own your system. Look at the shame you try to hide. Before you dare to knock on our doors, clean your own house. Because we will no longer listen to hypocrites who cannot practice what they preach. This scandal is not just about one judge. It is about an empire of hypocrisy. It is about a system where the rich control every branch of power. It is about a country that hides its corruption under polished words.